Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Amethyst Rune Witch and this is my YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be all about the cauldron, how it may have been used in the past, how you can use it in your modern craft, and just some extra little tidbits of information. It doesn't have to be, if you want to use a cauldron, you don't have to have one of those traditional style cauldrons. They're a bit unwieldy, they don't quite fit our modern stoves, so you don't have to have one. I have got a pan that is very much that bowl-ness of a cauldron, but I don't use it as my cauldron. If you are a practicing kitchen witch, you can just use any saucepan. The saucepans of today are the descendants of the cauldron from thousands of years ago. They do appear in myths and legends. They tend to be vessels of wisdom and sustenance, as well as inspiration. There is, just to name a few, there's the Cauldron of Plenty that the god Dagda brought to Ireland. It provided enough nourishment to feed an entire army. You know, there's that feed the 5,000 thing coming in there. Then there's the Cauldron of Rebirth. So number 2 is the Cauldron of Rebirth, which belonged to a Welsh king called Bran the Blessed. And with that cauldron he could bring the dead back to life, but there was one condition: they couldn't speak. So anyone who was brought back to life using that cauldron could not speak at all. The next one is the Cauldron of Wisdom, which is Ceridwen's cauldron. That's another name it goes by. It was sometimes associated with the Holy Grail. Lots of the Grail stories originate from the Arthurian legends, and Ceridwen's cauldron is from around the same time. And that cauldron brought divine knowledge and inspiration. It's very much a creative thing. The cauldron is very much associated with the element of water. You could also associate it with earth based on the metal having come from the earth. You could also associate fire with it because you have to heat it up to cook food, to cook up a potion or tincture or whatever. So the associations can be interchangeable. It all depends on how you feel about that particular item and which element you want to use it for. Now, in history there have been a couple of cauldrons found. There's the silver Gunderstrop cauldron, which dates all the way back to the 2nd century BCE. It was found in a bog in Denmark, and it has Celtic gods and warriors around the outside of it, but there's also the possibility of an initiation ritual being depicted on the outside of it as well. It's quite an interesting thing. I'd love to see it one day. You can use a cauldron in any spell, but they are particularly useful and powerful for spells about transformation, creating a change in your life through manifesting positive things or banishing negative. You don't even have to have a formal spell written out. I say formal, you don't have to have 1,000,001 steps to your spell. You can just have you can just write a request on paper, burn it, and then bury the ashes either in your garden or sprinkling them in your garden, or you can sprinkle them in a body of water. It all depends on what you want to do with it. You can also use a cauldron to burn herbs to amplify their energy or the energy of the spell that you're using them for. I actually have a cauldron shaped wax melt burner. So it looks like a mini oven, and obviously the wax melt goes in here. But this to me is a sort of magic in itself, because I've got things like coconut and lemongrass. So the lemongrass, I've got rose and lily. So if I wanted a slightly more, self-love smell around me, I can, put one of those in, light the candle in the bottom, and off I go. That's, it can just be as simple as that with spells, If you use a cauldron or pot to make a potion, you need to be sure that you are focusing your magical energy onto your intention while you're brewing. So, for example, you could say that a mug is a cauldron of sorts. So if you want to brew yourself a tea, or even the teapot, if you put the tea bags into the teapot, you can do it that way. It's completely up to you. But you can also, if you have a cauldron big enough, you could also, at Samhain, use it to go bobbing for apples. It's quite a well-rounded thing to have. So if you don't have a traditional, a cauldron that looks like this, but bigger, obviously, if you don't have one of those, you can improvise. You can use a variety of things. You can use any pot or pan in your kitchen. You can use an iron Dutch oven. There's also the idea of using a steel sauce or stock pot, but it has to be uncoated. And you can also use a ceramic plant pot on a base, but again, it would have to be without any treatment on the outside, so no paint, preferably no glaze. But there's also the chimneya, which is, it looks like that, only it comes up a bit more. You could also use a fire pit. You could use a barbecue, but that is just for outdoor use only. I would not recommend it indoors. You could use a large stone mortar, an iron kettle, not your standard kettle, modern kettle, but an iron kettle that you maybe have to use on the stove, or there's a brazier, which is, from my understanding, very similar to a fire pit. So there's a variety of things you can do. There's a variety of things you can use it for. If you want to use a cauldron within any spell and within the spell's instructions, it says that you don't need one, but you want to use one, go ahead and use it. It's the spells that are out there, I use them as inspiration. They are there to inspire, not for you to follow to the letter and then get you know, potentially come out with no results. You know, it's completely up to you. So that's it for this week. I hope you've enjoyed this. I will see you again next week. Stay safe, everyone. Blessed be.